I'm Dom Gervasi, owner and producer of Made in Brooklyn Tours, going virtual to interview people who are making it in Brooklyn and elsewhere for my new Making It series. In this episode, I'll be interviewing Roxanne Bohana, owner of Roxy's Tea Parlor. Roxanne is not only the owner, she's also the artist and designer, not to mention a singer in her own right. Here we are.
Okay.
How are you? You were clearly skittish about this. I could tell.
A little bit.
You have no fear of missing out. You are not afflicted with FOMO.
Okay. Good.
Well, thanks for joining. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for this opportunity.
You're welcome. So you're the owner of Roxy's Tea Parlor.
Yes.
And you are also the artist and designer.
Yes.
And there's more to you than that too, right?
And the printer.
And the printer.
Yes.
Well, tell us about Roxy's Tea Parlor. What's it all about? And how did it begin?
Began about 15 years ago. I'm originally from the city, and I moved back here in 2001, and I love Brooklyn. So out of that came this idea to honor Brooklyn, and I was a printmaker in college. I majored in printmaking, and I thought it was always fun working with t-shirts and designs and stuff. And I love the history of Brooklyn and the vintage aspects of it. So I decided to start this t-shirt company, but I wanted to be more indigenous to the borough instead of being I heart Brooklyn, and just wanted to do it in a very more personal way, I guess.
So you went to school. Which school did you go
to? Stony Brook.
You went to Stony Brook, and they had a course, or they had a major for printmaking. Oh, that's great.
That's great. Well, it's a Bachelor of Arts, but my emphasis was printmaking and minored in art history. But now I'm actually a fine artist as well, so I do abstract work. That's a whole nother concept involved there. So I just brought some of that over. A lot of the designs that I do are hand-drawn, my own designs. I also like to combine old images I might find, and I take pictures. I use that as well and work everything in Photoshop.
And before you started Roxy's Tea Parlor, you were working for other businesses too?
I had worked for a screen printer out in Long Island for some time, a couple of years. But we used, that was commercial printing, and that was using a different ink. I use water-based ink, and I use a higher grade of t-shirt, like a finer t-shirt, of what they would call a fashion shirt.
Okay.
And so that is more, I guess you could compare it to meatball, printing. And
what's meatball printing?
I don't
know. Okay, we got to get into this because there's lots of people know about printing. I was like, I got a printer over here. What is she doing with? Is she putting the T-shirt into her printer? So tell us about this.
It lacks the fine art of printing. It's not as fine an art as not that mine is a fine art, but it's more so than commercial printing. Each print is hand printed. I'm using a water-based ink, which is soft on hand and less texture when you feel it. So it's a little bit finer work. So
let's just, for a moment, before getting into the actual art, which is really amazing, and I love your art, I really do. But you're screen printing, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so I think most people have heard of screen printing, but they really don't understand the process, and I don't necessarily want you to explain the entire process, but it's a very manual process, right? What should people know about screen printing that they probably are not aware of from your standpoint, from someone who was actually doing the screen printing?
It's a direct way of printing on a shirt. It's kind of like you have what you would call a squeegee, which is like this with a long rubber edge. And you're basically pushing ink through a stencil that's burned into a wood frame screen. You know, the screen is called mesh, and it's an acrylic. And the process of burning the image into the screen, that's a photo emulsion, that's a photo process. And so basically what you're doing, to make it simple, is just pushing ink through a large stencil, you know.
But you're doing that repetitively, right?
Each every shirt is hand printed, so everyone is done singly at a time. Yeah.
And how long is a run? How many shirts or tote bags would you do at a time?
Oh, I could, if I'm trying to print a quantity, then I could be going an hour, 2 hours of constant printing. Because after every shirt prints, it has to be heat set. So I have what you call a flash cure unit, and I put the shirt under there, and it takes about 10 seconds, 15 seconds, and it cures, and then it comes off, and the next one goes on. So it's like a 3-ring circus. It just keeps going. You know, I go from one spot to the next, and kind of like that. There are faster ways of doing this, which I'm looking into, but it requires more space. And for instance, a conveyor belt dryer, you would just load the screen on, not the screen, the t-shirt on, and it would go through basically a little oven and come out the other side. And that way you don't have to fuss. You just put it on and just keep printing. But yeah, I mean, the thing about water-based ink is you can keep going and print, but you can't leave the screen and go have lunch or, take a phone call, because it will dry in the screen and you'll ruin the screen. So once you start, you have to keep going.
So, and you mentioned space. So your screen printing, are you using one of those contraptions that have 4 screen printings going on at the same time?
I did have that. Yes, I had one of those. I just sold it because it turns out that I usually just print one color.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought, well, I had it for a number of years, and then I don't really utilize it. So I thought, I would, and it was kind of a large footprint of space. So now I have a single color press that I have screwed into a table, and I work that way. And I'm about to actually replace that and get a little bit better quality one. But yeah, I did. But those 4 stations are meant for 4 color printing, or 3 or 2, whatever. And I basically like to just work with one color. I like to make the design strong enough to stand on its own,
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to be very frank. When I do markets and such, and on my website, I charge $20 a shirt,
Which is very, very reasonable.
it's extremely reasonable.
It really is.
Yeah, I know. I might want to rethink that. But, if I did a 2 color or 3 color or 4 color, I'm still going to get the same $20. So I try to make it simple.
Right.
So,
well, from a bit, because I've seen, on your website, there are some, multicolor images. I'm not sure if those are screen printed or you use another process for them. I'm going to show us your website in a few minutes, but how are you making those? Is that the same thing?
That's interesting. That's probably my fine art stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a lot with my heart is too. That's an interesting thing I'll make a long story short. Basically, I'm interested in decayed surfaces, eroding surfaces, things, a lot of graffiti and ripped posters and stuff like that. So I find walls or fences or metal objects in the street or whatever, or anything that has a distressed look. Photograph it, take it, put it in Photoshop, work with it a little bit, make it my own a little bit more. Then I take watercolor paper. I'm going to try to make this real quick. Watercolor paper, do a wash of different colors.
You could take your time.
And then run that through my inkjet printer so that that image comes on to the watercolor paper that I've fed through the inkjet. Then from there, that's when the real thing starts happening. Then I bring out all my, Prismacolor colored pencils, acrylics, Carandache, which is a Swiss-made crayon, and I get into all like recreating it, bringing it almost back to life and color, because I love color, and so that's what that is.
It has this like very classic Brooklyn, but it's obviously contemporary. It's your own take on it.
Right.
Like you said, you're mixing in maybe an image of, I don't know, there's this one merman, I think it is, and he's like holding a hook, and it's like, it's a really cool image.
Yeah, that definitely. So here's the thing. I have an extremely warped, ironic or warped, I don't know, sense of humor. Especially after a glass of wine. So yeah, I mean, the idea behind that shirt is that historically the Gowanus Canal, which, side note, the Gowanus Canal, you just can't go wrong. I mean, there's just so much you can do with that, a lot. So a lot of great, from a lot of Brooklynites, a lot of great takes on the canal and comments have come out, but have been created. But that one was because the Gowanus Canal used to be a dumping ground for the mob. And that's why that image was created. It's basically, a hybrid of a very damaged fish, dead fish, because the canal is so polluted, and a zombie mobster, because of all the chemicals in the canal, has recreated himself in another form.
See, the mob would dump dead bodies on all Brooklyn waterfronts. I don't care if it's Coney Island Creek or if it's, the East River. I mean, it was but
yes,
when it happens in the Gowanus Canal, it's a special kind of
you don't know what's going on down there.
Right. I forget how deep it is.
But the deeper you go, the worse it is. So I mean, at first, all that bacteria and decades of dumping such harmful chemicals, so that brings a lot of death. But from that, there's new life created, and what that is going to be, we have no clue. So,
well, it seems like we both have a love of waterfront.
yes.
I mean, all my tours are on the waterfront: Red Hook, Williamsburg, Dumbo, Coney Island.
Yeah.
And it seems like you on your shirts, you have designs for Gowanus, you have designs for Coney Island, which I freaking love. During this entire pandemic, fortunately for me, I live about 15 minutes by bike to Coney Island. If I didn't have Coney Island, I would be insane. But I love Coney Island, and I love what you've done with it. The art, I mean, you really, I'm pretty sure, is your art anywhere in Coney Island? Because your art is it is. Where is your art in Coney Island?
For my first design was Coney Island design. It was the Coney Island mermaid that's on the website. That was my very first t-shirt. I love Coney Island. So they sell pardon me, they sell some of my shirts in the Freak Bar, their shop. My brain isn't.
At the Coney Island sideshow, but a seashore.
Yeah, they have a, sort of a souvenir shop.
Yep.
And I have some things there. Some artwork I just have on my website that I've created. They have a couple of prints of mine, Coney Island mermaids, with pencil and so forth. That's on the website. I've done a lot of work for them and with them. I've also designed and printed the 2009 Mermaid Parade shirt. 2 years ago, I did. I kind of recreated one of their designs. That's what they hired me to do, and so I did it in my style. And that was the mermaid tee 2 years ago or 3 years ago now. The one with Deborah Howard was the queen, and that was fun. And so yeah, I Coney Island's just such a great place and great subject matter to design for. It's just so much. I could be all day between Gowanus Canal and Coney Island. I could create designs all the time. It's just great stuff. And
it's not just something from the past. You're also, I mean, there's stuff going on in Gowanus and Coney Island right now. I could describe a gazillion scenes that I've seen in Coney Island that you could put on a t-shirt.
And I'd like to hear that.
Well, one scene, I don't know how you would do this, but when I'm on the beach, I go to a certain part where there isn't a lifeguard. Instead, they're the New York City Parks Department officers. And what they do is, if you go in the water and the water is calm and the water is not very deep, and families are going in and just cooling off in 90-degree weather, the Parks Department officers are blowing their whistles, trying to get them out of the water. I mean, they'll swarm onto a certain part, and Brooklynites are just completely ignoring them and continuing to splash water in themselves. I mean, they're up to their knees, I've seen it. It's kind of like the Coney Island Keystone Cops.
Oh my God, I was just going to say that. I was just going to say, right off the bat in my mind, I see a Keystone Cop with a whistle running down the beach, and that was the design.
It's hysterical, and
you said that.
For the first time this year, I went to the beach, and they have these blue mats that go from the boardwalk to the water, at sections, at different bays. So I walked down, and these guys were set up shop selling beer, and of course they're selling Corona on the beach, and that was the first time I've ever seen it actually on the beach. And I just thought, I don't know, I kind of have a warped sense of humor myself. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. So I ordered a Corona. I offered one. I saw the poor officer under the green umbrella, dressed in black pants and a green shirt. I mean, that's like attracts heat. And I offered him. I said, "Could I get you a beer?" And he says, "No, but I could use some water." So I go and buy him a bottle of water. And then later, like a few minutes later, he shows up to where I'm sitting. And he said, and he has his pad out, the leather pad, and he says, "I really appreciate you getting me that water. It was very nice of you, but I'm going to have to give you a ticket because you're drinking the alcohol on the beach." And my mouth dropped to the sand.
Oh my God!
And he said it with a perfectly straight face. And then he said, "No, I'm just joking around." I said I was going to break out my Bensonhurst in just a minute. But these are the kind of stories. I mean, if you stay any amount of time in Gowanus or Coney Island or other parts of Brooklyn, Red Hook, you're going to have some material for your t-shirts.
That's so funny. That's such a funny story, and that's so that's so Brooklyn.
Yeah.
That's what I think. I mean, that's what I'm trying to capture in the shirts. That attitude, that's fun, and I could definitely see that happening. And then joking about it, it's like just adding to the whole thing. That's funny.
So looking at your art and your website, it's obvious that you like like some neighborhoods more than others. I mean, are you planning, or maybe that's not true. Maybe there are other neighborhoods that you really do like. Like for me, I have my hole in a wall coffee shop that I might, I'll go there and I don't want anybody to know I'm there. Are there certain neighborhoods of Brooklyn that you just like to go? I mean, I know you're revealing your inner secrets here. We won't, you like to go that maybe you don't do a t-shirt for yet.
All right. I live in Flatbush. I can walk over to Dickness on Cortelyou, and down Cortelyou, there's a couple of little coffee shops, and there are restaurants, and I just love it going over there. You can also take a walk and see all the old Victorian homes. So yeah, that is definitely a beautiful spot, and I'll hide away there in the coffee shops when we could. But now I just go over there and get coffee to go and food to go. But a lot of the restaurants and a couple of bars at this moment, you're able to buy a drink and sit out front. So that's kind of really nice. You feel like you're on vacation. So I would say that's it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that now, as restaurants are opening up and they have the outdoor seating now on the street.
Right.
And sometimes they're whole blocks that are blocked off just for that. And thinking about that, I'm like, all right, whatever you think about bicycles, and I love bicycles, but rather than city bike, I'd rather that they did that. Mm-hmm. I'm more happy with that.
Yeah, it's really, and I wonder, I mean, I know that they're getting hit hard with this, but in some cases, there's more room for tables outside than they had inside. So I think some are doing better. I hope they're all doing better.
Yeah. Well, what I want to do, I'm sorry?
People are so anxious to get out and get anywhere that I think they're frequenting these places more than before.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think people are exploring the great outdoors of Brooklyn, and we do have beautiful neighborhoods. What would you call the part you're talking about on Cortelyou Road, where the Victorians are? What neighborhood would you call that?
Dickness
Park.
Dickness Park, and just you walk through there, and all of a sudden Brooklyn becomes quiet. You can hear the breeze going through trees and gigantic fat trees. So I love the trees, and the houses are beautiful, and it's just like you feel like you're upstate for a little bit. Just beautiful. And a lot of people are very into gardening, so there's all these beautiful flowers. Just really, really great.
It's really important to love the neighborhood you live in, that you actually live in. And that way, when I'm at home editing this video, maybe where I can't listen to music, I have to be focused on this one thing.
Yeah.
It's good that I could get outside and feed my cat down the street, or just walk around, say hello to people. So when you live in Flatbush, and you have, I mean, getting back to what you do, you have a lot of space where you live to do the screen printing and to store the what did you call them? The meshes?
The silk screens.
The silk screens?
Yeah. I have metal shelving. Let me look at it for a minute. That's 3.
I know you're so familiar with it, you forget what you have.
Scary. 3 shelves high, and that's where I have a lot of all my silk screens. I try to keep the shop very neat and organized, which I do for the most part. And I have a live-work situation. It's a basement apartment, so for the first third of it, that's where the shop is, because it's near the door. So when I print, any kind of smoke or anything will just go out the door, which there isn't much of with water-based ink. There's no real smell and stuff like that. For a DIY situation as mine is, and actually pretty growing company, I I can work this way for now, but it's going to have to start outsourcing printing. Now, also the other thing that helps uh, keep it working is that I reuse screens. If there's a design that's not being used, strip it, restretch, and get a new design. So it's ecological, and it's also space saving, and that's pretty much how I run it. You know.
So, just one thing you mentioned, water-based ink.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any special instructions that customers need to know about in terms of washing and drying?
It's incredible. I have shirts that are years old and still look really good because
Oh,
the ink it's like a dye. It gets into the fabric, you know, and if it's properly cured, which I've got that down obviously. So they last. People have approached me saying I'm on my third Gowanus swim team shirt,
hmm,
because they've worn them out. I mean, like, wore them so much that the fabrics are coming apart.
yeah.
So yeah, there's you just I just wash and throw in the dryer. Is nothing special.
Now, you mentioned about the actual T-shirts themselves, the material you use, and the tote bags you use. It's T-shirts and tote bags, right? You do both of them.
Mm-hmm.
And what is it that's so special about the materials that you use?
Well, I'm using a higher grade of what they call fashion tee, so it's a better quality cotton. So it's a better quality shirt, as opposed to shirts like Gildan or jerseys, and they're decent shirts. They're fine shirts, but this is a higher quality, and it's because not only is the cut and design of the t-shirt a little more fashion forward, but the quality of the actual cotton is excellent. It's better, and the weight. It has the kind of weight that you would want to wear, not too heavy, not too light, and that's an important. And also, most importantly, feel. When you feel the shirt, it's real soft, real
Hmm.
soft. And if you feel another shirt like Through the Loom or a Gildan, you'll feel the difference for sure.
Hmm.
That Gildan, of course, they make a really nice shirt called the soft style, which has a soft hand. So that comes a little bit closer to what I'm using, but not as high grade. 100%. And then some of them are 60/40 cotton to poly blends, the heathers.
Hmm.
Heathers are generally a blend, and they're super soft.
Would it be revealing a trade secret to say who the manufacturer is?
I am very open about that. Anyone asks me a question, I'm more than willing to help. I use Bella Canvas tees, and I use another brand called Next Level. They're really good stuff.
Hmm. I've never heard of those brands, so interesting.
Yeah, they're really good.
Mhm.
I mean, there's brands like Alternative Apparel. They're excellent t-shirts, pricey. Uh, and then there was American Apparel, which now
Yeah.
has changed. It went out of business and has a new name, basically. I found that the fit of those were just too tight and small, not realistic,
Mhm.
and they were pricey. And I found I was getting a lot better better quality at a better price with those two companies.
Yeah, especially like I said, your pricing is very reasonable. I will, after this interview, I am ordering at least one T-shirt because I think, wow, this is really
No,
beautiful.
no, I will be giving you at least two t-shirts.
Shh, don't say that. Don't put it on the air. No, but I would love to have at
It's
least
sort
one
of,
because they really are. They're great.
you can
Um,
say it's barter. I mean, that's
what I want to do now is I want to go to your website
okay.
and I'm going to scroll down.
Okay.
And you pick out, a T-shirt, and I'll stop, and then you could tell me the story behind it. If is that fair?
Sure. And I will say that the biggest, most popular selling shirt is the Gowanus swim team.
I'm sure it is. So for those who don't know the Gowanus, because I'm imagining I have viewers all over the world who are looking at this right now.
Okay.
The Gowanus Canal was the Gowanus Creek, and it's basically was a natural watershed for higher areas, for the the once hilly areas of Brooklyn.
It was shellfish. I mean,
it was what?
People would get their shellfish, clams.
Right. Foot-long oysters in there, and clams, and it was really a natural thing, and off of the canal, which feeds off of the creek that feeds into Gowanus Bay. Mm-hmm. When the Dutch were here in the 17th century, they would create these large reservoirs, these mill ponds that were used to. They were artificial reservoirs that branched off the Gowanus Creek, and then they would let the water out to power grist mills to make flour. And there were several of these mill ponds around the Gowanus Creek, and then over the years, the creek would become transformed into a canal. And basically, from the 1860s to the 1920s was a time when it was the busiest, with much traffic coming in, bringing in materials, especially raw materials that would later on be used to develop parts of Brooklyn, like Brooklyn Heights.
Right.
But there were many different industries, tanneries, an ink company, and many others, not to mention manufactured gas plants. And over the years, the canal became very, very polluted. And in addition, there are at least 14, I think there are 14 points of combined sewage overflows. So whenever it rains a little bit in Brooklyn, and our water treatment plants are over capacity, that raw sewage goes into the canal.
And you smell it.
And you could smell it. And not only that, there are probably, well, I don't know if there are bodies in there now, or maybe there are the remains of bodies in there.
Hybrids.
Or hybrids in the canal. So today it's a super fun site. It is being aerated more. There is also water that is flushed into the canal from Buttermilk Channel. Yeah. Am I right on all this?
Yeah, absolutely. There's fresh water coming in, but it just can't, it's like water and oil. Trying to mix water and oil doesn't quite mix.
Literally. And there is what is it? The Gowanus dredgers. Is that what they're called?
Yes, they have very good. Yes.
Right. And they actually canoe in the canal or shovel.
I've been to some of those sites. And I can't remember his name, but there also was a gentleman who got his wetsuit on and swam the Gowanus.
This guy from Boston, I think. He just felt so attracted by that aroma, and he felt, I have to be immersed in the canal. No, thank you. I used to do a tour of Gowanus, and the Gowanus neighborhood is great, but I am not touching that water.
No, not unless you want to be a science experiment. That's just, I feel like there may be a cure for cancer in there somewhere. I mean, there's so much chemically going on, and so many different things have been dumped. Outside of the smell, I'm particularly attracted to the color. And that
used to be called Lavender Lake. Right?
Yeah, and it is really called the Lavender Lake. Yeah, and it can change color depending on the weather. It has
this iridescent kind of color, right?
Yes. So much. I mean, it's a mystery, and yes, there's a tremendous amount of history. But then, I mean, it became a very popular dumping ground for many businesses, and Brooklyn disrespected its waterway, but now it has a new identity.
Thanks in part to you, because as we shall see. And I just want to say, considering that you love Coney Island as much as I do, I hope one day that you choose to do something for the Coney Island Creek. Not necessarily Sheepshead Bay. Well, Sheepshead Bay is great, beautiful too, but the creek itself is another waterway that's been long neglected.
What is it? There's one in Queens, Newkirk.
Newtown Creek.
Was it?
Newtown Creek.
Newtown Creek, right. That is right. People have mentioned that to me that I should work with that, which may be coming up soon, but I just have it, living in Brooklyn, and I just have a connection to Gowanus,
I get it.
I don't know. It just.
So here I am, and I'm going to scroll down.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the tote bag. Yeah, that obviously came out of COVID. It's Rosie the Riveter, except that I Brooklynized her, gave her more of an ethnic city feel, and but wanted to cover New York as well, and then did the artwork below there, the color piece. That's actually, that background is across the street from me. So that's a piece of artwork from a photo I took across the street, and then I did that process of recreating it with my artwork and stuff. Oh, and then to the right, real quick, Skelly. Skelly was an old street game that was played in the street by a lot of kids. Yeah, so that harkens the past and brings it forward. That's old Coney Island in the middle there, and that was the left side there. That's just me having fun with graffiti. The one on the far left, the black shirt with the bright green, that's the Gowanus Diner cocktail menu, and I had a lot of fun with that because I took basically an old 50s, 60s paper mat that you would see in a diner and that had all those drinks, and I redrew all of them and renamed them. So there's oh my God, there's bubonic beer, cement shoes, canal and tonic, arsenic ale, just a bunch of names like that.
Yeah, you do kind of have that warped sense of humor. I could see that.
Yeah, a little area. But
Let me go back.
Yeah, the Manhattan for those who want to drink chemicals. And the center one is us. I have a real love for sci-fi, and so that's us being invaded. Having a UFO over the Brooklyn Bridge, and that's us coming up in arms. So that's why we are the Brooklyn Resistance, to kind of bring in a little Star Wars there. So
I'm totally into sci-fi too. I'm a Trekkie.
Oh God, so am I, big time. Okay, so yeah, here's more. Oh my God, this is the one on the left was a lot of fun. I was trying to do, I redrew and designed kind of like the 60s Rat Fink flavor to this one. They were having 2 summers ago. They were having. She wanted to do over in Gowanus Souvenir, the store Gowanus Souvenir, which is no longer there, but they have another store there now. They had a surfing theme, so I designed this for the summer surf. So that's the Gowanus guy that I created surfing the Gowanus. So then you see a skeleton hand coming up and out, and kind of garbage coming out of the wave.
I haven't heard that expression "rat fink" in like a gazillion years.
And then the national park, I thought, well, we'll give the Gowanus Canal some national park status. And then right there, and so I took the same creature. All those across have the same guy that I created as the Gowanus guy. Gowanus, sort of like Swamp Thing, but he's the Gowanus thing.
That's the Gowanus thing. Yeah, you couldn't use another noun for Gowanus. It has to be thing.
Yeah, pizza's like probably my favorite food. So is my favorite food, and so I wanted to do a Brooklyn a T-shirt honoring Brooklyn pizza. So that one is actually about 4 different pizza boxes combined, and that's an old, kind of a vintage-looking pizza guy chef. So that was my homage to Brooklyn pizza, I guess.
Can you explain that? How did you combine the pizza boxes? I mean, you mean the designs from the pizza box? Yeah.
Yeah, I be honest with you, I Googled vintage pizza boxes and I just redrew some of it and photoshopped it together and placed everything where I wanted it to be and accentuated some aspects of the design and so forth.
I think I want that T-shirt.
The Gowanus swimmer is kind of like, when you look at it,
The Gowanus swim team, you mean?
no, swimmer next to the pizza. That's basically, when you look close, it's somebody swimming the Gowanus Canal, but not being aware that beneath the surface is this crazy ancient monster about to eat him. And that again, that's to be honest, that's that creature's a combination of some like 17th, 16th, and 17th century monsters, and he's a hybrid of different ones, and kind of a Jaws theme.
How about what's the story behind the cat? Because look, if I put up a cat video, I know I'm going to get a billion people liking this. So we got to talk about the cat.
Okay, I'm a major cat lover, which is an understatement, but I love animals anyway. So this is actually most of it, but not all of it, was an old vintage cat image. So I kind of recreated it, added, subtracted, redrew it. He's smoking a hand-rolled cigarette, and I just love old vintage images, and I combined that with my love of cats and kind of came up with this guy. And then there's little stars in a circle. I mean,
When I look at your art, you're not advertising a particular pizzeria or a particular, I don't know, TV show or something like that. You really are creating something new with something old. So
right.
when I see this image of the cat, I don't know why, but I remember Felix the cat, and I remember the cartoon Felix the cat, and the other one, Courageous Cat. I don't know. People might not remember Courageous Cat, but
yeah, unfortunately, yes. This is kind of like a street cat. And then the Divers Club, the Gowanus Divers Club, is just, that's a very old, old diving helmet back, I mean, probably from 100 years ago. And yeah, I mean, you need that kind of equipment. You need to really be suited up to survive the canal. So
do you write as well?
yeah, I do, and
You could probably write a lot of good stories.
yeah, that's what I mean. He's got a fishing hook in his hand because he's defying being caught. I put pieces from illustrations, vintage illustrations I found, but there is drawing in it as well. A lot of drawing because I need to make it work and I want to emphasize certain things. So, I'll definitely recreate, redraw, but like you won't really find that character as he appears there because I've redrawn him. But the idea does exist, but not exactly like that.
Right, you're putting your own impression on it, basically. I want to go to like the last pages.
Okay.
There are the tote bags.
Oh, okay. So I'll explain what that is. Those are derived from my original fine art work. So what happens is there's a company, Fine Art America, which I've got a bunch of my artwork. So I actually selected to buy my own tote bag, which I would get from them at a discount, and then I get them made from them. They're two-sided. The same design is on both sides. So yeah,
What's the story behind the Flatbush subway queue?
okay, good question. All right, so that, believe it or not, is a ceiling to my local Q train station on Church. So there's been a lot of leaks and paint, decayed paint. So it starts that way, but it's a far cry when I'm done with it. And so it started that way, and then I redrew and recreated it, and that's what that is really. So a lot of the peeling paint and the rust just creates such great texture, and I guess conceptually it can get a little deep. It's just like it says, all the time. I mean, Brooklyn is old. Subways are old, and
Well, yeah, I mean, relatively speaking, it is old, and it's been through a lot.
exactly,
The Brooklyn of today wasn't the Brooklyn of the 17th century, right? Brooklyn expanded, and it grew to absorb Williamsburg and other what were towns, right?
yes,
Coney Island was not part of Brooklyn historically; it was part of the town of Gravesend. Uh, so it really was. There were all these towns that were part of what was Kings County under the English, and then later on, Brooklyn, as it absorbed the surrounding towns, became in its own right everything that and everything it was in the beginning, and everything that it absorbed around it. I could hear it in your voice when you say old. You're not saying in terms of the number of years, relative to other places in the world, it's not so old, but it's been through a lot over time, and each iteration, and that's what I see in your art here. It's like there are these layers and layers that convey all the different changes that have taken place in Brooklyn. That's what I feel when I look at this.
exactly, and that's pretty much well said, and that's what the other work is about. Uh, it's bringing the old layers to the forefront.
These are cool. These are like reminiscent of sailors' tattoos, right?
Which I love, old vintage Sailor Jerry tattoo. Big fan of old 30s and just that the artist Sailor Jerry. I mean, I love his stuff. So this is definitely all my hand drawings. The silhouette girls I drew, the sailor girl was probably my second hand drawn design, and she does appear on a t-shirt. And she was drawn in the flavor of a Sailor Jerry type of girl, which was
What is a sailor, Jerry?
he was he was a sailor actually, and if you Google him, you'll see all his tattoo designs. He was a tattoo artist, and he did a lot of work in between the 30s and 40s, and they have a very distinctive style, a simple but just very cool style that is popular again.
You not only do the art, but you also describe it. And I think, that's why I asked if you wrote, because obviously you love the subject matter, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
you're very open about the material that you use, and
mhm,
I think people appreciate that. There's so many things that are obscured when you're buying something online. You're never really sure what you're getting.
mhm.
So I hope customers appreciate that you go out of your way explaining. You don't just say it's 50-50. You say it's 52% combed ring spun cotton and 48% polyester. People appreciate that.
Thank you for saying that. But it's really, really important to me that customers are happy and that I'm honest. Honesty is a big part of what I'm trying to do. Now, yeah, and I want people to have a story with each shirt, and I'll get back to that later. But this one that you just put up, I'll explain that. That one is not my illustration. That one is one that was found probably, geez, I want to say 70 years ago or 80 years ago. It's quite old, and it was probably, I think, from the Daily News. You'll see that kind of thing more often than not, but that particular one was a patch that I found on an old vintage site that was, they were selling these vintage patches or something. And so you won't see that particular image often at all. You'll see that guy in other poses and doing other things and whatever. So I kind of fixed it up, cleaned it up, but kept the vintage, the a little bit distressed look of it, but cleaned it up a bit and added the bottom, added the top, and yeah, the old Brooklyn Dodgers will call them bums, and
That's right.
so Brooklyn that you just can't not have that.
Well, I'm so glad that you've called Brooklyn your home, because it's obvious you love Brooklyn, and it's so obvious. And I think that people who are new to Brooklyn would do well to get one of your T-shirts to show how much they love Brooklyn.
Oh, and also on the top there, the top right, you'll see the black shirt. Now that's harkens back to what we, all you think about the 60s and the hot rods and a lot of Brooklyn guys, with rolled up white T-shirts working on their cars, and they were called grease monkeys, and that's what that shirt is honoring those guys.
And despite the fact that we've been pushing really hard to go all bicycle in Brooklyn and the rest of New York City, there are parts of Brooklyn like Coney Island. You could go on Neptune Avenue, or you could go on Cropsey Avenue, or you could go to Bath Beach, not Bath Beach, to Bensonhurst, and even parts of Borough Park, where you could still find whole streets all dedicated to fixing up cars. So there are plenty of grease monkeys left in Brooklyn.
Sure. I mean, I love old cars, and that comes from that. I used to go to. I've been to a number of old car shows and stuff, and I kind of am familiar with an old engine. I know where everything is, but that Coney Island mermaid on the bottom there in the center, that was my first design. And she's all hand-drawn, and she was inspired by Sailor Jerry as well. And there's also a nautical star, which I love stars. I use that too. But she's inspired, but she's definitely all like hand-drawn. And the 30s the 30s. I love the 30s, but they had a lot of women were drawn in kind of a shapely, buxom fashion. And cartoonish, and it's kind of fun, a lot of fun.
Like Mae West, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So before I leave your website, are there any designs that you really feel I should call out?
I don't know. I mean, the Coney Island Devil one in the middle is pretty popular. That one's also, again, hand-drawn, and it accidentally kind of looks like, what's his name, David Navarro?
Vincent Price?
Vincent Price, yeah. I didn't think of that. It does. It wasn't, but it was, was David Navarro, is he from the Chili Peppers? He's from the Chili Peppers.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I didn't mean for that to happen, but it just sort of ended up that way. But
You see,
anyway,
talking to you, I can't, for whatever reason, I'm going back in time, my own memories, and I love the old monster movies. And Vincent Price, he was great.
Vincent Price was amazing.
Awesome. Well, this is another one I want. I want this one.
Okay, there you go.
I feel like we just went through a museum of fine art right now. So,
Yeah.
and you said you're expanding, right? Are you expanding, getting more people to work for you, or somehow contracting work out?
I'm beginning to do that and would have been more involved in that. But since COVID, business has, like most businesses, has taken a hit. So I have to first recover from that. And then, yeah, I mean, outsourcing the printing. But it's tough because I'm fussy and I need to have the right person. And so, that's part of the thing. And I think, just to people who are out there and who are business owners, just things that I've learned so much. And I have to say that a couple of things real quick. When you're growing, you want to, you reach that point where you wearing so many hats that you can't grow if you continue to do that. And I'm aware of that. It's just making that transition is a real tough thing, but you have to do it. So outsourcing the printings, which allows me then to more designing and marketing, etc., stuff like that. And that's a real interesting part of growth for small companies, knowing when to make that move and how to make that transition.
So much of your work involves a design.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not going to say it's easy, but
Well,
finding a company that could best represent your work, and that's a trust issue. It's like, all right, who do you work with?
yeah,
Maybe pick more than one. So
yeah, it's finding the printer who's going to print well, because when somebody, to me, I don't know what you would call it, but to me, it's an honor to sell a shirt. So if somebody's going to pay their hard-earned money, they're going to get what they paid for. I'm not into cutting corners and cheating. Whatever you want to call that. I go for that.
Well, definitely, I need to say this because I really love your art and I want to see you succeed. I think your art, I think you're underselling. People are going to hate me for this. I think you should sell it for more.
I'm actually considering that, going up a couple of bucks. They've been the same price for a few years. I think it's time to, make that adjustment.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough too because you have to, I mean, there's the whole mystery around which sizes to print, right? You have small, medium, large, extra large, XX large, which ones are you going to do, right? How many are you going to do of which size?
Right. I've got that down. Basically, I print by order, like print on demand. So if I get an order from a store, I'll print all that. I'm also involved in doing markets, but those had stopped because of COVID. With Fad, it's a fashion and design company, not company. They do markets, and I love doing that. But I love selling directly from my website, and I'm on Etsy and stuff like that. But so there is some stock. I have printed some stock, and I'm getting back to what you're saying. Most popular size would probably be large, mediums, and large.
Yeah.
But you know what's funny about that? It varies because you love Coney Island, for instance, and so do I. So a lot of my orders are 2Xs. I don't know why, but Coney Island orders a lot of 2X, like when they order for themselves, my shirts for themselves. So I find that pretty funny. The Midwest tends to order larger sizes. Brooklyn itself at one point was selling smaller sizes because a lot of hipsters wear things smaller.
Because we're built like brick houses, Roxanne. I mean, we're just so big. Southern Brooklyn too. We're just bigger.
A real Brooklynite. Yes. Yes. You have to be tough to live here. You have to be.
Especially now. I think that after this is all over, I'm going to put a little mark on my belt buckle. It's like, okay, we went through another. I did not leave Brooklyn. So many Brooklynites are leaving to their second homes, and I'm like, hey guys, I'm here. I'm still here. And you're still here.
Like I survived Brooklyn COVID or something. Yeah, I know. I want to try to avoid that, but yes, it is true. I mean, you know, it's scary, you know, but so much to say on that subject. But I'm working on a new design now, a Brooklyn design, but it not reflective of what's just happened. But what I've got of what's going on is that the Rosie the Riveter type of thing I did, and then I donate some of that money. As every show, there's $5 donated to an animal rescue cause that That's
cool. Thank you so much for
really
spending some time. I think you're obviously a very accomplished artist. I can't. Yeah, you are. Stop rolling. Don't you roll your eyes. It just is the whole thing showing your art.
Carving artist, please. I need to push more. I'm not the greatest market type person, but I'm working on it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know about that because each one of your pieces is just a blaring advertisement for your art. Any other words before we sign off?
No, I mean, just basically the idea behind a t-shirt is just that it's a walking expression of who you are. It's personal. So I hope that they can connect with however different feelings people have, you know, and it really is. It makes you, when you wear anybody's shirt, I mean, it makes you feel whatever the shirt is presenting.
Cool. Well, thank you for saying that. It's very touching. Thank you for watching another episode of Making It. I'm Dom Gervasi, hoping that you too are making it a good one wherever you are.